Welcome back, Jordan. And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Deeper Dive. It is Wednesday, August 30th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Matt Belman. We are here, brought to you by Caesars. 6-game main slate, monstrous early slate, but only a 6-game main. And we get the Braves in course, so should be a real blasty blast. Didn't work out for them yesterday. Maybe it will today. If you haven't done it yet, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter and in chat. Welcome Jordan Klein back to the fold off of a lovely vacation. Matt, what's going on?
Nothing, man. Talked a little early slate before we got on here. Excited to break this one down with you. It's a little bit of a weird one.
Yeah.
But, that's what happens when you get the best offense in baseball in Coors against Kyle Freeland.
You know what happens when you get the best offense in baseball against Kyle Freeland? You play 13% of Kyle Freeland.
It's a 6-game slate, right?
I hope that's the reason. It's not because I'm a big Kyle Freeland stan or I know him personally, because I'm not excited to see it, but it's happening nonetheless. It's just going to be an interesting night. It's a very interesting dynamic. Having a 7K hitter and 2 other 6K plus hitters on a team that is so far removed as the top stack on paper that it's really hard to talk about, because we don't have this sort of context where you have a team that's 40-something% likelihood to be the top scoring stack, which is going to make them at least 60-something to be the top 2. The chances of them just being functional for today are massive. 8-run-ish implied total or higher. I can't picture days like that playing in the United States, at least.
I've never seen a slate like this, or our tools look like this. I can't recall, at least. I'm not going to say it's never happened, but I can't recall this.
In a different run environment, maybe back when scoring was massive, 15 years ago before DraftKings existed. But there's probably somebody in chat that's seen it, or somebody's dug in. But I can't think of too many scenarios that we've had where a team that is so far and away the top offense is in Coors in this scenario. I am curious whether or not it would be a bigger number in Colorado or Cincinnati, depending on the weather, but I don't know if we can see that. Would a 100-degree day in Cincinnati be better? Would that be crazier than Coors just because of the power potential? I don't know, but at this point in time, Atlanta is broken.
Yeah, it's really hard to like you said, talk about this slate given that scenario. That said, this slate is at least more interesting than the past 2 nights, just in the sense that there are cheap pitching options today, but the cheap pitching options suck. So you don't have a Reagans or a Grayson Rodriguez or anything like that, a Kyle Harrison. So yeah, spending down, there aren't really that good spend ups either. So spending down probably makes the most sense, but you're just going to have to get ugly with it.
You mean that having a quarter of all pitching exposure going to Andre Jackson and whatever Denny Reyes is those guys aren't that good? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think it's even weirder that I have Kyle Freeland projected for 4 fantasy points and he ends up in my lineups.
I feel like the thing with Kyle Freeland is it's not even about Kyle Freeland. It's about can he, do better than the Jackson, Zerpas of the world? You know what I mean? And if those guys aren't good, which they aren't good, then it's not the craziest scenario to see Freeland outscore them. The problem I have with Freeland is just outside of everything obvious is he doesn't strike anyone out. They're not striking out. It's hard for me to see him. I don't know. Obviously, you know the spot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When we get to it, I'm not going to talk about it like I like Kyle Freeland. He grades out as the worst starting pitcher on the slate, and I don't even think it's close. And yet he's going to end up in my lineups. But we won't talk about that for a bit. We got a lot more to talk about. Reminder to everybody that is watching this show right now, listen to the words that I'm going to say. I get it. Most of you probably want to tune me out. I don't blame you. Most of the things that come out of my mouth during these shows are not worth listening to. But this is Lock is at 640. If you're sitting around with your thumb up your ass waiting for 7:05, you are going to be 25 minutes late. 640 is the time that you are looking for tonight. Otherwise, you are going to have lineups that aren't set the way that you want them to be. Got to let the people know, man. Yeah, I assume most people don't want to hear what I have to say, but that one's real.
It's real and it's important.
It's very important. This game is also important. Marlins and Rays. That's the first one we've got here for today. 3.6 run implied total for the Marlins, 3.8 for the Rays. We're getting a real pitching matchup. Jesus Luzardo is going for Miami. Zach Eflin is going for Tampa. Battle of the state of Florida. At least this one is in Miami. I would imagine they're having absolutely no issues with the weather right now. Let's start with Jesus Luzardo. 9,200 here against the Rays. 33% owned. Eflin on the opposite side is $500 more expensive, and half is owned at 18%. How do you feel about Luzardo?
I'm a Luzardo fan in general. I like his stuff. I've liked him, for a while. I don't really get how he's getting 35% ownership here because, Cole's also getting 35%. I mean, if you're using Atlanta, you can't use both of them. You have to choose between one of them. And Cole is the obvious guy, in my opinion. I get it. He's a lot more expensive. I like Luzardo here. It's not like a great spot against Tampa. He's just in a price range where I don't think I'm going to land on. That said, he is the second best pitcher per our tools. He's getting the most / the second most ownership. So he looks good here. I just struggle to see lineups where I'm getting to that range personally.
Okay. I'm dead neutral to the field here. I have 31%. We have him 29% top two pitcher, 13% top two value. So I think the ownership is correct for his data. I think he should be around 33%. The bigger question to me then is, if you don't see yourself getting to Luzardo, I can't imagine you're as interested in Eflin, or are you?
Nah, same thing with Luzardo. I mean,
okay,
they look similar to me. I think Luzardo's the better play just because he's 500 cheaper. So if I were getting to one of them, it would be Luzardo. And hey, maybe I haven't built my lineups yet. I'm not able to get to Cole. Luzardo is, 2,300 cheaper. Eflin's 1,800 cheaper. So Luzardo looks better between the two. I get why the ownership is there. This isn't the strongest version of Tampa's lineup. Luzardo's at home, higher strikeout upside than Eflin. You probably feel safer with Eflin. He doesn't get blown up as often, but I'm taking Luzardo in this spot. And like I said, though, not sure I'm getting to this range.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of trouble getting to Eflin. He's clearly a talented pitcher. I have no problems at all with the Marlins spot, although it is not a great strikeout matchup in general for either team. The Rays aren't a team that strikes out a ton. This Marlins roster, as constituted, not a team that's going to strike out a ton. When you've got Luis Arias hitting leadoff, probably the least likely person to strike out in baseball, it's just not. That immediately is a problem when he's the guy that's going to have the most plate appearances for a team. So I look at it, when I'm looking at that scenario, that's what's really limiting to Eflin, because I have a really hard time just saying that he looks better than Jesus Luzardo. And if I can't get to Luzardo, I mean, I am getting to Luzardo, but if I can't put Eflin ahead of Luzardo, and I think Garrett Cole is better than Eflin, then Eflin is just going to die on the vine because of the Braves.
Right. I think it's just the fact that he's more expensive than Luzardo also. If the prices were flipped and it was just Luzardo is $500 more expensive, so there was $1,000 price difference between what they are now, I think we're having that conversation.
We are then. Yeah, for sure. Eflin's strikeout prop today, 5.5 with the under -164. So we're talking less than 5 strikeouts as expected. That's letting you know, that betting line is letting you know how unlikely it is for Zach Eflin to strike out a lot of Marlins today.
And he's close to 10K. I like Eflin as a pitcher on certain slates. He looks good. Just not really this one for me. And I think we see that eye to eye.
Yep. And what that does then, because another big part of the reason that Eflin's a little harder to get to, we are getting to Luzardo from some strikeout matchup or for some strikeout upside, but this is a park that limits runs. It completely removes right-handed power from the equation. That is massive for someone like Jesus Luzardo as a lefty. This is a very difficult game to get to, in my eyes, for hitting. We have the Marlins 11th of 12 teams in top stack, 11th in ownership. The Rays are not that much farther behind. They're 10th and 10th, so I guess they're slightly ahead. I didn't expect the Rays to just be ahead given Luzardo's ownership, so I was talking before I looked at the data. Neither one of these teams are that owned. It's very minimal. Do you have any justification of getting to the Marlins or Rays, or is it just picking off individual bats? Because there's a lot of power in this game for random hitters, but I don't know if you could ever look at it and think like, well, this is the spot I want to get a 5-man.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the latter there. Like even batters in this game, like you can certainly, there's going to be at least one run scored in this game, right? Because that's how baseball works. So, chances are there'll probably be more than that. You can pick a batter here and there. I understand why the Rays are getting a little bit more ownership just because Luzardo has the propensity to, give up the long ball a little bit more than Eflin does, at least in his career. It's been that way. That said, no, there's offenses that I like to get away from Atlanta here, and it's not Tampa or Miami. It's just not.
No, if I'm looking at bats in this game, I'm looking at Arozarena. I'm looking at Isaac Paredes. I'm looking at Jose Siri, because you're looking for righty power, because that's what Jesus Luzardo, at least this year, has given up. 204x ISO to righties, a lower strikeout rate. But the problem is he might be giving up a little bit more righty power. It's a 77 park factor to righties. It just completely nerfs righty. That plays perfectly into Luzardo's pitch mix. So I might like those guys, but at the same time, they're like 20. This isn't the way that you use park factors, but they're like 23% less likely to hit that home run today just from walking into Miami Stadium. So tough game for offense, which is also even more interesting on a day where Colorado and Atlanta is the opposite game. This game is so difficult for offense, and it's so easy to get to Colorado and Atlanta just from a runs perspective, that basically everybody is going to be cheering against this game for an offense. No one wants this. You're going to have your random 150 maxers that will get to the Marlins, that will get to the Rays. Someone in the 150 max community, if one of these teams goes off, they're going to be the team that's at the top of the board. Full stop. It's not going to be a stranger or a one-off type dude. It's going to be a 150 maxer. Other than that, definitely. I see no path for the random person to get to Marlins Rays.
Same. It's just not. Certainly there are paths for one of these teams to be optimal. One of the pitchers gets hurt early. They just get to one of the pitchers and the bullpen comes in. Tampa went off last night. The only hitter I could say that I actually straight up like in this game that I would try to go out of my way to roster is Arozarena. Big power and speed upside. He stole 3 bases a couple days ago, so that's there. That said, he's 5,400. So if you're rostering him, you're not rostering someone else that looks even better.
There's a 5% chance that one of the Marlins or Rays are the top scoring stack. That's minimal.
Both of them.
Yeah. Well, either one of them. One, there's a 5% chance that it's either one of them. 95% really of the time it's not. It is.
On a 6-game slate. Yeah, I could see this one. Even most times on slates like this, every team gets ownership, in the 254 max or whatever. I could see these two teams coming in literally 1 to 2% owned.
Yeah, 2.5 to the Marlins right now, 3.9 to the Rays. It's going to be minimal. That's for sure. There's no way around that one. There's not going to be a lot of it. Not even
probably the least two. Right there with Detroit as my least favorite offenses on the board today.
Jake Swales. I don't think that's true at all, if it helps, but whatever you need. I'm pretty confident that didn't happen.
What'd he say?
I don't think that Big T won the relay throw with a single bullet last night.
No.
For multiple reasons.
Yeah.
If he had a single bullet in the relay throw last night, it's because he did the same thing that I did 3 days ago. Put your first entry in and forgot to put the other 149 in until you got the lock and it was already filled.
He didn't even win the relay throw, though. Someone with a stochastic Avi won it.
You're damn right. It was probably Tom Kennedy. He wins it every other night.
It was not Tom, but you are right. It was Jay Steed.
Shout out to Jay Steed for picking up the relay throw. But yeah, it wasn't even on a night slate or anything.
No, it wasn't. That's funny.
Anything else for Marlins Rays?
No.
Alrighty. Schedule for the rest of the night. Very easy. Normally this would look a little bit different, but tonight it's MLB Live Before Lock coming up from whenever we end this show until 6:40 when lock happens. Like I said, 6:40, not 7:05. If you try to go to 7:05, you are going to have less money. But at 6:40, that will be lock, and that's what MLB Live will take you to. There is no PGA Live Before Lock tonight. This is Wednesday, so that's normally a PGA show at 8 o'clock, but the golf season is over for a little bit before it starts back up again. So we only have the MLB show tonight. That's all you're getting for us, but it will be the best MLB Live Before Lock show that airs tonight. So make sure you're watching it. And then on the off chance that you're interested in signing up at a site that isn't Caesars, you should sign up at BetMGM, link in the description. They have changed their deal off the top of my head, and I'm remembering that now before I start my read. So what I'm going to do is check to see if that read is updated in the place where I would read that read. My guess is that it is. What's up, Jordan? Oh, no. Well, that part I'm not worried about. Okay, so I'm like 99% sure they changed that amount. And that's what I'm talking about. Let me make sure. I want to see if it's official yet. Because I don't want to give anybody the wrong deal. But they are for sure changing that deal. I actually think it's getting bigger, that might sound preposterous. I'm looking through it now, trying to find it. I know I saw it. I don't know when those messages were coming in. Maybe I'm wrong. It doesn't matter. You should sign up for BetMGM one way or the other because you're going to get a boatload of potential free bets based on your first bet. Put in your first bet up to $1,000. You're going to get 1,000 back in bet credits if it loses. If it wins, you don't even have to care about what I'm saying. By the way, you're also getting a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. That's like $140 value there. If you've only got $100 to put in or $50 to put in, that works too. You're going to get whatever that amount is for your first bet back in bet credits. Do this. If you haven't signed up at BetMGM yet, hit the link in the description, sign up. I promise you, it is worth your while. If you're limited in money, take a break for a second. Wait till I tell you a little bit more about Caesars. Jordan, check those. Actually, don't even bother. But somewhere in those channels, something's changed. Is that what it is? Yeah. It may be 1,500 now, not 1,000. So whatever the deal is, I think it got better. Somewhere in that neighborhood. All right, game 2. Let's keep it moving. Tigers and Yankees. It's Garrett Cole going for the Yanks, 4.6 run implied total, 3.4 run implied total for Detroit. It's looking like Joey Wentz is going to be the long man for the Tigers. So as we break this one down, Garrett Cole, 11,500. He is $1,800 more expensive than any other pitcher on today's slate. And by the way, we're going to talk about the Braves in a bit. Joey Wentz is 6,700. 35% ownership coming into Garrett Cole today. Are you finding the salary for him?
Not quite sure yet, but I'd like to. Like, if I can, I will. I guess my biggest problem is, well, obviously the biggest problem is the price tag. He's almost easier to roster with the Braves now than you would have thought at the beginning of the day. You got Travis d'Arnaud in there, obviously Pilar if you want to use that cheap bat. I like Cole. I think he's the best pitcher on the slate. Great matchup, great ballpark, all the above. He's expensive. So you obviously got to prioritize him. I don't think it's that hard to do. But he is 11.5, which is like a hefty price tag. He's almost in Strider range, and he's not that guy.
I have him, and I didn't expect it because obviously I have the Braves. I have 26% Braves. I have 42% Garrett Cole. Somehow that's not stopping me from getting to Atlanta. I clearly have no problem ever getting Garrett Cole against the Tigers. It's a really nice strikeout matchup. The park is fantastic to limit lefty power. Tigers are going to run like 5 lefty bats out there against Cole. I love this spot. Finding the functional amount of salary to get there is difficult, but I guess that's what happens when you get to Kyle Freeland or Angel Zerpa at 5,100 or a 4K whatever Reyes. I'm getting to Garrett Cole because there's a lot of garbage at the bottom of pitching, and it's allowing that to happen.
Same. To be honest, like I think right now, like Cole, an insert garbage pitcher here, looks better than like whatever, two mid-tier guys, whoever you want to say, even though there's not really that on this slate. I wish it were not like that. I don't even think Cole is like some lock of all locks, but you got to take what's given to you. So here, I think, a shitty guy plus Cole is probably the way that I'd like to go.
I think I'm going that way quite a bit. At least 42% of it. I doubt I have a lot of Cole plus Luzardo unless I'm getting to a really, really wild cheap stack. So I'm getting to Cole. Do you want Joey Wentz? Because he is 8% owned, not the starter for today's game against the Yankees, but the alleged long man. Is this a guy that's interesting to you? Only 8% ownership.
Interesting, I think, is the right word, just because of that ownership. He's more expensive than I'd like, though. If he were like in the same price range as Jackson, Zerpa, Reyes even, like I think he's probably the best one of the bunch. But he's in that group for me, and he's the most expensive. So I get why the ownership is low. If you can afford him over Jackson, whoever, then I think he's probably the way to go. But I don't even feel like that strongly about that. So I think he belongs in that group. He's just a little bit too expensive.
I have him. I don't know why I have him. I have a sneaky suspicion that as I get a little bit closer to lock after this show, that I'm going to get less of Wentz, just because I'm probably going to knock his innings projection down a little bit. I'm guessing there are no prop lines on his outs for tonight. I can't imagine that exists. Let me look. Because since now that he's not the starter, I can't imagine. Yeah, there's no sign of him like actually pitching. I'll knock him down a bit just because I don't trust it, but solid enough value at 6,700. I'm not super worried about this Yankees lineup against him. A lot of power, but not a lot of like high level talent at the bottom.
Yeah, the bottom.
I mean, the power potential is crazy, but at the bottom end, it's not a lot of like real hitters.
Almost prefer him, assuming that the opener only goes one inning. Almost prefer that for him here.
Well, let's talk about bats. I know we're not starting with the Tigers. Well, actually, let's start with the Tigers. They're dead last in value. They're dead last in top stack. They're facing Garrett Cole. Do you have any value in the Tigers other than they're on the opposite side of a 35% owned pitcher on a 6-gamer?
No.
Yep, that's it. That's it.
So in fact, they're not even cheap.
No, they're not. They're dead last in value in my metric and of the site's metric. Like I don't
usually see that.
No, for them to win, like the Tigers are a team that will be like very difficult for people to get to. I think it's way easier to get to Marlins and Rays and way harder to get to Tigers because now you're paying up to be very contrarian.
Yeah, like you're paying off for not even just a team in a bad spot, like a bad team in a bad spot. No, if I'm spending up, I'm going to like Texas. If I'm spending up and not going to Atlanta, I'm going to Texas, not Detroit.
Let's talk Yankees here because there's power potential, but they're 6th in top stack, 6th in value, 4th in ownership, 9% owned. But the most owned guy in the Yankee lineup is, 13% to Volpe. And on a slate like this where he's a $3,600 shortstop, that ownership is not all that surprising. There's only so many shortstops you could roster today. Even if this were a 5-game slate and there were 10 of them, the average ownership for a shortstop would be 10%. He's 13. So it's not all that crazy to see 13 at 3,600 in this spot for the Yanks. But what do you see here for their lineup? I love if they can get some base runners. The power scares me. But if they can't get any freebies, I think you could just see like 2 solo home runs and a very uneventful Yankees day.
Same. It is interesting. Usually when you see these teams, like you mentioned, Volpe leading the charge at 13%, it's not even like their best hitters aren't even the guys getting the most love because of their price tags. So like that interests me. It's really hard to look at outfield and click on Aaron Judge over Acuna. I mean, Acuna and the Braves are really expensive, but as I was talking about with Lofty yesterday, like they've priced a bunch of offenses up. Might not seem as much because the Braves are so expensive, but Judge is 6,600 here. His name's not going to get clicked on all that often. So like from that aspect, and I certainly agree with you, if they can get base runners on, against Wentz, the top of this lineup looks really good. Like if the bottom 4 or 5 guys can do anything, like I think this stack could make some noise. the ownership's there already though. So I get it. Like they're a value, and the ownership again is not really anywhere except for Atlanta. So I'm not like worried about it. I just don't think they stand out, over the other teams that are like in their range. Like that said, it's only a 6-game slate. We've talked about Tampa and Miami being teams we don't like. Detroit's a team we don't like. New York is way ahead of those teams. And I think I like them better as like one-offs because of the possibility you talked about of them just hitting a couple home runs, which is very possible.
Yeah. I like the idea. Like, I think they're properly separated in ownership. We've got Acuna around 30%, Judge around 10. But if you can just build a Brave stack without Acuna and you're leaving him out to make that Judge, I don't hate that idea of a way to be a little bit different, just to gut a little bit of ownership. But yeah, I mean, like Acuna is just going to look better than Judge, even at a 7K price tag. It's just such a better run environment. I mean, the Braves are projected for like, it's as if you took all of the Tigers runs and gave them to the Yankees, and that just equalizes the Braves. They're like 3.5 runs ahead of them.
It's the steals for Acuna also. Like, that's really like what does it for him on why, like, even his 7K price tag, like you can reasonably say that he should be this price, if not even more expensive in this spot.
Do you like the points for steals?
I think that it's definitely too many. It's not like it doesn't, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, a steal in the game doesn't mean nearly as much as like it does for DFS. I don't like that.
I would either like to lower the scoring slightly or just add in the -1 or -2 for caught stealing.
100% agree.
Yeah, it's just a little too there's no downside right now, and I would happily take some downside.
Completely agree.
Okay, we don't have anything to talk about for Tigers. I have 3% Akil Baddoo, but I don't think that's all that interesting.
He's leading off. I think he's like 3,200. So yeah, I get it.
All righty, then we keep it moving. We go to Mets and Rangers. 4.3 run implied total for the Mets, 5.1 for the Rangers. Dane Dunning going for Texas, and whatever Denny Reyes is going for the Mets, and he is the flat 4K. And today against Texas, a Texas team with a 5+ run implied total, Reyes is 25% owned. Are you paying all the way down?
I'm not, because I love Texas here. So they're like my preferred offensive choice. And I make minimal lineups. But if I were not playing Texas and like stacking Atlanta, I mean, he would be right in the mix for me with Jackson, Zerpa. And he's the cheapest. So like, I get why he's getting love. His ownership, though, just makes me like Texas more. I mean, the only reason he's getting love is because of his price tag and the fact that there aren't really other pitchers on this slate people feel comfortable with. So I get it. Like, just spend down at 4K. Hopefully he gets you a couple clean innings at least. Even if he doesn't get you clean innings, hopefully he goes like 5. I get it. Like, I understand the ownership. I really like Texas in this spot. I think that's where I'm going to be headed. That said, I was on Texas the past 2 nights and it did not work out.
Okay, so Reyes 25% owned. I'm about there, but with the amount of Cole I have and the amount of Braves I have, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised. I'm not talking about him as if he's like any sort of great play. He's owned because he's 4K, and that's it. Dane Dunning on the opposite side, though, 12% owned at 7,600. This is the mid-tier you're looking for. Dane Dunning is like the ultimate mid-tier guy. Right. He's in a decent enough park for it. Not a great strikeout matchup. How do you feel about Dunning at 7,600?
The thing is, you're right. He is the mid-tier guy, but there's only 2 guys like that, him and Pepio. Like, that's it. There is no one else. So, like, if you're playing the mid-tier, it's one of those 2 guys. I don't hate Dunning here. Our top pitcher tool likes him, 5th in that tool, only getting 11% ownership. He's just like, for this slate, he's not too expensive for who he is. He's just in a price range I struggle to get to because you've got these cheapos that I'm sure, if I were betting right now, I would assume at least one of the cheap pitchers has a really good game for his score. One of them is fine for his score, and one of them is shitty for his score. If there are 3 cheap guys they're talking about right now, and I think nailing the cheap guy is, a better proposition than using Dunning in a matchup without much strikeout upside. He's got decent win equity here, but again, it is crazy. We're just talking about stolen bases. A steal is worth more than a win. That's nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy. Usman said steals are hard. That's why they get points. 79% success rate for steals. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's not that hard.
they're not hard anymore. Maybe well, first off, hard is relative. They weren't ever hard, but they're much easier than they were even in previous years.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's 79. If you steal, there's the 79% chance you're getting 5 points, and let's just say 80. There's an 80% chance you're getting 5 points and a 0% chance that there's downside. Every steal attempt is worth 4 fantasy points.
Yeah,
there's
that's crazy. There needs to be. I'm with you. I've thought about this for a long time. For me, I think it needs to be either 3 points for a steal, or it needs to be like -1. I've thought about this a lot. I think minus like 1.5, 1 to -2 on a caught stealing.
I think lowering the steal and not having a caught stealing is the better way to do it. No one wants to lose because they got caught stealing late. It's just easier to whatever equalizes that expected value, just make that be the stolen base value, which is probably like 3.5, somewhere in that neighborhood.
No, so with you there.
Done. I'll message the DK rep after this.
Please do.
Here we go. All right. Well, let's talk about your Rangers bats. 2nd in top stack, 10th in value, 5th in ownership. I am not all that surprised that you would want to look at the Texas Rangers bats against the 4K pitcher that's 25% owned.
Yeah, this is a team, and I've talked about them. I feel like, it's rinse and repeat for me. When they go off, this is a team that hits home runs. They also run. Now, they haven't gone off the past couple of nights, but that doesn't mean they're not going to go off tonight. They're certainly not in as good of a spot as the Braves, because no one's in as good of a spot as the Braves. But they're also a very good offense. They're more expensive than the Braves, especially the top guys. So they're not going to be owned. Their upside is right up there with Atlanta, even if they're not going to get there that often. And the ownership's not going to be there. You're facing a pitcher who's getting ownership only because his price tag. He's not very good. You get the 9 at bats here. Like, there's just a lot to like about Texas here. On a normal slate, like if Coors was not on this slate, Texas might be, the highest owned offense considering the pitching options, etc. It's just hard for people to want to go there over Atlanta. And I get that, but I'm one of those people.
I don't have a lot of Texas. I'm half the field. I wish I had more. I think they fit perfectly today on the opposite side of Reyes's ownership. It's the team that I want to get to as that sort of leverage stack. My problem is, it's not that I'm getting to Atlanta. The other team that I'm getting to aggressively today is the Colorado Rockies, and then we'll get to that in a bit. But like, that's the stand that I'm taking, and that's the one that's costing me more than anything else.
When you can't fit, like, no matter what pitching options you use, like, you cannot fit Texas and Atlanta, like expensive bats together. It's impossible.
No, that's going to be a real struggle
for sure. So, and people aren't going to want to choose Texas over Atlanta, and I understand that they're not as likely to succeed. I also think the path to the top, when Texas does beat Atlanta here, is a lot easier.
Mets bats, they're 8th in ownership, 10th in top stack, 5th in top value. There's a little bit of love here for Dane Dunning. He's 12% owned. The Mets are ultra cheap. Most expensive guy in the lineup, Lindor at 4,800. 5 guys that are going to be sub 3K. I just don't love this park, and I'm not like a huge fan of targeting Dunning.
Same. They're getting too much ownership for, what they are on this slate. They're getting that ownership because they're cheap. So I get using them as fill-in pieces. McNeil hitting 3rd is 3,700. Dual eligibility at 2nd in outfield. Like, I get that, but they don't look particularly good here. I don't see many scenarios where they're, winning this slate, even if Dunning's not great.
I have 3% of DJ Stewart, and that is the most exposed I am to a Met.
Makes sense.
Fun game, though. Interesting dynamic for what's going on here for New York and Texas.
Yeah, definitely. I don't love the ballpark either. It's just a talent play on Texas here.
All right, guys. I talked about it before. Now I can actually talk about it. It's Caesars time, everybody. They are the sponsor of this show. This is the deal you're looking for if you don't have that $1,000 that I mentioned before. $50 is the key piece here for Caesars. Click the link in the description of this video. You got to start there or you're getting nothing. And honestly, this one's going to sound really weird. I need you guys to turn off your ad blockers. For some strange reason, an ad blocker at Caesars is going to affect what you need to do here. So click that link without the ad blocker on. Turn that bad boy on again whenever you're done doing this deal. You bet $50 at Caesars after clicking that link. They're going to give you $250 in bonus bets. You're going to get $50 immediately, and then you're going to get another $50 for the next 4 weeks every single Monday. You got to run through that money each week. If you let that $50 in bonus bets sit, it'll disappear the next week before you get the other 50. So you want to cycle through it. But if you don't have the money to go big time, like we mentioned on BetMGM, 50 to get 250 is the way to do it at Caesars. Again, click the link in the description. You got to be 21 or over. That should be no surprise. And if you or someone you know has a bit of a gambling problem, you got to call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. A lot of bad takes in chat here. You should absolutely not get minus points for errors. That's nuts. Not minus points for strikeouts. No.
I mean,
errors would be insane.
Errors. Yeah, I was going to say, like, you could make a rational argument about strikeouts, whether we agree or not. Errors, there is, like, literally no argument to be made. I want to ask you something about Reyes real quick, because, like, this is what's fascinating. Jackson and Zerpa aren't good, but they look better on paper, at least to me, given their stats and the matchup than Reyes does. Like, is he only getting ownership because he's like 1,000 cheaper than them? Like, I'm just struggling to see why those guys aren't just getting more.
Okay, so for me, I have Vines, Jackson, Zerpa, and Reyes all projected within 0.5 of a point of each other. Okay. 9.8, so 9.8, 9.3, 9.3. So I'm getting to Reyes because I have him projected the same way as all these other guys, and he just happens to be 4K. I'm actually not getting to Andre Jackson, but we'll get to that in a bit.
Well, I the ownership on Jackson is certainly already there. And, if you're playing higher owned bats, I get that. I also don't think he looks any different than those guys we just talked about.
It's all just a mess of garbage at the bottom that it's not really fun to talk about. We're about to get into two of these goons right now. 4.6 run implied total for the Royals, 4.9 for the Pirates. Angel Zerpa at 5,100, 7% owned, which I'm going to be honest makes no sense to me whatsoever. 5,400 for Andre Jackson, 26% owned. I have flip-flopped these guys. If Zerpa's 7 and Jackson's 26, I'm going to have 26 of Zerpa and 7 of Jackson. That's just naturally going to happen here. What am I missing? Well, actually, let's start here. Do you like either one of these guys?
Like is a relative word, right? Like, no, but on this slate, yes, I do. I'm making 3 lineups tonight. I could easily see pairing both of these guys together, knowing that they stink, but they're cheap and they both they have the highest strikeout percentage on the slate. Like, and I get it. It's small sample sizes and all that, but still something to be said. I don't understand why Jackson's getting so much more ownership than Zerpa. I guess maybe you don't even feel comfortable that he's going to go longer in this game. I don't get it. They look exactly the same to me. So yeah. I can't really talk about distinguishing them. The reason that I like Zerpa more is because he's cheaper and getting way less love. So yeah, in that aspect, I like Zerpa more. Like, projection wise, they look the same to me.
Yeah, we're on the same page there. Neither one of them is going to project well, so they can only be so far apart from each other as bad options. So I'm signing up for all of the Zerpa just because his ownership is low. It's an easy way for me to be a little bit different, but take your pick with whatever trash you want at the bottom. I'm not excited to have either one of these guys show up in my lineups.
Nah, how could you be? But on this slate, it just makes too much sense. With Atlanta, mentioned how expensive Texas is. Like, yeah. You're hoping that these guys are just okay, and it's going to be a night where the bats win you the slate.
All right. Well, I don't have too much to add here. I have 26% Zerpa. I have 2% Jackson. We'll see where that hashes out. If ownership moves, it's just going to move those guys closer to ownership. I think the moral of the story is they're 33% owned in total. Feel free to get that much of both of those guys in some sort of combination, and I think you'll feel pretty good. The real question then becomes, what do we do with the bats here? We have the Pirates 5th in top stack, the number 1 value team today, and 3rd in ownership. Seems to me that they really go well trying to fill out around an Atlanta Braves stack. They're pulling a lot of ownership. Do you like getting to Pittsburgh?
that might be why that Jackson's getting more love than Zerpa, just because Pittsburgh's a lot easier to fit. And they're the team people are going to with Atlanta. Maybe that's not why, but that's part of the reason, perhaps. These offenses, given, Kansas City, given Jackson's ownership, Pittsburgh's value on how high they are on the top stack tool looks pretty good to me. I don't know, man. Like, I really struggle to see one of, like, a team that's not one of the top offenses tonight, Atlanta, Texas, Colorado, or the Dodgers, like, winning the slate. And I only put the Dodgers up there because it's the Dodgers. Like, Fat's been good, so I'm not, like, overly excited about picking on him, but it is the Dodgers. We saw them last night, so I'll lump them in there. Pittsburgh is just not in that group for me at all. So I get using pieces from them. Brian Hayes looks great leading off at like 4,300. They've got other guys in the middle of their lineup that are really, really cheap. So I get it. Just probably not where I'm going to prioritize today, except maybe as fill-in pieces. But I'm more on the Zerpa side here.
I know that feeling. Royals on the opposite side are close to the same value. The Royals just happen to have a 6K Bobby Witt. Otherwise, these guys would be the same price tags. And right. Bobby Witt, for the most part, deserves that price tag as a shortstop. They're 8th in top stack. They are 3% less owned than the Pirates against Andre Jackson, who's getting the ownership. I also, much like I want to get to Zerpa because he's not owned and Jackson is, I also want to get to the Royals bats because they're not as owned and Jackson is.
I get that. That makes sense to me. I could see why you'd like that spot, kind of like the inverse of the pitchers. So it makes sense to me. They look basically the same as Pittsburgh to me. They're a little bit lower on the top stack tool, but they are facing the more popular pitcher. It's not a good ballpark for hitting. You're really just playing against Andre Jackson here. It's not even like you're playing on talent because the Royals aren't talented except for Witt and like a couple other guys maybe. So like I get it, the ownership against Jackson. It kind of just falls into what I just talked about. Like I struggle to see not one of the top offenses, taking this slate. And then you've got teams like the Yankees and the Diamondbacks who aren't facing popular pitchers, but have better offenses than the Royals. So like those teams look similar to me as well.
Right now I have 17 stacks of the Royals. I have about 10.5% ownership. That's a little bit north of the 7% we're projecting. So I am getting to Kansas City and I'm very happy to do so. I hate this park in general. 81 park factor to righties, 80 to lefties. It really does limit power, but if the ball can get out of the park against Zerpa or Jackson, that's where it's going to start to look good because neither one of these pitchers have the pedigree of somebody that we should be scared about.
No, not even a little bit.
All right. Anything else for Royals Pirates?
You
ready?
Let's do it, man.
The Colorado Rockies and Kyle Freeland have a 5.6 run implied total. The Braves and whatever Darius Vines is somewhere around 8 runs. Let's start with Vines, who's 12% owned at 6,100. How does that make you feel?
Not great. I wish he were a little bit cheaper. I do think that of all the cheap guys, like he's the most unknown. So I don't think it's crazy to say he's got the most upside, of all those guys. Probably has the lowest downside as well, given the spot, given the unknown in cores, et cetera, et cetera. I think he probably belongs in that other mix of pitchers that we've talked about. The ownership's pretty much in line there. So yeah, I think he looks like similar to Jackson, Zerpa, a little bit more unknown than even those guys. So I think there's more downside and more upside. Is that how you see it?
Okay, so I have a minimal amount of Vines. I don't really know why he's getting 12% ownership here. It's bonkers to me. So I would much rather just roll the dice on someone else, whether that's any one of these other low-owned goons, whether it's Zerpa. Like Zerpa for sure, I would rather have over Vines. I can't imagine rostering Vines over Zerpa. That one makes no sense to me. The run environment is completely different. The run totals and stuff are like even the Rockies are a better play than the Royals and the Pirates from a runs perspective. And Vines is $1,000 more expensive than that. I don't get it. And then we got.
Let me ask you this though. Like on that note, Zerpa is second to last in our top pitcher tool. What do you make of that?
I mean, one of two things. So. One, I think the easier way, let me pull it up and get it in front of me just so I don't.
Sure. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
No. I have it here. So yeah, obviously Kyle Freeland is nowhere near available to be used in our top pitchers tool. I think that's underselling him. 0.1% and 0.3%. Like, to me, those aren't the correct numbers. There's no chance. Like, he's going to pitch today. He's like 2% by default, just being like a normal MLB pitcher. But that's besides the point for right now. Even if you want to say Zerpa is 8, like, he's 8% and Vines is 12. So the rank of those guys is a little bit more extreme than the actual data behind it.
I'm just kind of, my question is kind of, what do you make of Zerpa being behind him?
So for me, he's not.
Okay, so
I have Zerpa 8% to be a top 2 pitcher, and I have Vines at 7. So like, I have them basically equal. I just happen to have Zerpa be $1,000 cheaper. I don't think there could be a giant gap between, 10, like that little gap of their top 2. I don't think is as worth the $1,000 you get between between those guys. I'd rather have the extra $1,000 than 3% of top 2 pitcher odds at the end of that list.
So with you, and also, like, I'm also with you. It's a better spot, better ballpark, all the above for Zerpa. So I am, on Team Zerpa. Kind of just wanted to pick your brain about that.
Here, Slade said Vines is stretched out. Seven innings last game. Yeah, the being stretched out rolling into Coors with the 13-run implied total is less important to me. If whatever Darius Vines is going 7 innings today in Coors, we need to have a much different conversation, because he is incredibly unlikely to do that.
I'd be very, very surprised if he does that. What an awful spot for them to throw him out there in his first start.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to add here for the Braves? They're 25% owned. They have a 42% chance of being the top scoring stack. They're the 5th best value, even at $7K for Ronald Acuna and 6,800 for Matt Olson. They look fantastic. I don't have anything else to add. It's the same thing we've done the past 2 days. They're clearly the best team.
They're clearly the best team, and what makes them even like that much more, like, not easier to play, but they look that much better, is that other teams are priced up. So, like, if you want to use the Yankees, you're spending 66 on Judge, and like that's in the same price range as the guys from Atlanta. They're really expensive. There isn't good pitching on this slate, so you're gonna have to take some chances. But they're in an unusually good spot. You just don't really see this in baseball. You just don't. Like, here's my question about Atlanta to you. In the 15, 150 max, I could see them coming in with the ownership that we project them to have, 25 to 30%. Like, in higher dollar stuff, do you think that's where their ownership's going to be? Because I think it's going to be about 50%.
I'll be honest, I don't know. I haven't looked at it the past 2 days, so I haven't calibrated to see what they're doing from one to the other. I could see it going one of two. I could see it going either way. I could see them being very popular, but like not stacked all that much. And just like they kind of like somebody, like everybody's got 1 or 2 of them at a minimum. Right. And then it's just easier to get to the Rangers, the Dodgers, the Rockies, whatever.
DRNO makes it a lot easier because he's like a normal price. Murphy's been like 6K. He's 4,100 hitting 6th.
4,100 is big time if he's able to be there. What do you think about the Rockies? 12.5% owned. I have 44 Rocky stacks. I'm 2Xing the Rockies. To me, this is like the sneaky best place you can go if there's going to be ownership. Not that they're any good.
No, they're not good, but there's also ownership coming to them also. So that would be my pushback to you. Like, they're 3rd in our top stack tool. The reason they're getting more love than like Texas is because they're way cheaper. They're easier to fit. There's a lot of unknown in Vines. He's been pretty good, in his minor league starts this year. I don't know how much we can take into that. Completely different atmosphere, major league talent, all the above. So I get it. The play on Vines' ownership. It's more to me, though, like the play against Vines himself, the unknown. Like I said, I struggle to see one of the top offenses not taking the slate down, and Colorado's in that group. They're playing in Coors. They're facing a unknown pitcher. I mean, if there was a slate for Colorado to like win it, it's one of these. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody's getting Hunter Goodman, $2,900 first baseman for the Rockies, hitting 7th. If that lineup is real, I haven't looked at anything since we started. He's 17% owned. Everybody else is 12% or less. It's nice to see that there aren't any extremes. Like, the entire Braves lineup is projected for more ownership than everyone but Hunter Goodman.
Ownership actually, and I'm just thinking about this as you're saying that. Yeah, like given our top stack tool, the ownership's already there. Ownership doesn't matter on any team except for Atlanta. Like if you're
Agreed.
playing any other team and you're like heavy stacking them and you're not stacking Atlanta, it doesn't matter.
Ultimately, I have about 50% of my hitting exposure going to this game. I'm not getting away from it. I am getting to Kyle Freeland a little bit. It's just a function of the slate. Don't play him. He's not good, especially if you're playing like one lineup. But yeah, look, this game's going to be very important to me. When you have a 13 run implied total for the game, like you're just expecting runs. I mean, 50-50 shot at more or less is basically what the market is telling you. If it gets to just 13, even on a 6-game slate, because of the ownership to Atlanta, they're already immediately a little bit interesting for whoever, like 2 or 3 of the guys from Atlanta are just likely to have good enough games to be in lineups. And because of their ownership, that pushes them up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you ready to close this one out?
Yeah, interesting game to close it out with.
It is. 5.3 run implied total for the Dodgers, 4.1 for the Diamondbacks. Guys, 650 people here. Hit that like button if you haven't done it yet. Ryan Pepio going for the Dodgers. He's 8,500 and 14% owned. Brandon Pfaadt is 6,500 going for Arizona. He is 9% owned. Do you like either one of these pitchers? Because based on our top 2 pitcher odds, Ryan Pepio might be a little under-owned.
I think both. You could say the same for Pfaadt too. Like
fair.
I do like both these pitchers. That doesn't mean I'm going to play them. First off, we talked about Pepio when you talked about Dunning and that like he's the other guy in the mid tier. If he were Dunning's price, I might play him here. He does come with a lot of leverage. It's just hard to settle on him. He's in the same price range as Luzardo. Strikeout upside, matchup, etc. Probably leans Luzardo. Ballpark certainly leans Luzardo here. Matchup, I don't know. He's facing Tampa, so tough to say that. But he's just a little too expensive for who he is on this slate. Thought if he were in the Jackson Zerpa price range, he'd be my guy. That said, he's not. He's more expensive than those guys, and he's facing the Dodgers. So while I like him more as a pitcher, and he's got better stuff than those guys, like 2 years from now, if one of Zerpa, Jackson, or Pfaadt is a 10K pitcher, it's Pfaadt. But that doesn't mean I want to spend $6,500 on him today in a brutal matchup in a tough park. The answer for me is just Zerpa and Jackson. The Diamondbacks-Dodgers game is interesting because the pitchers are coming with leverage, and I could see why someone would make a case to like use the Dodgers here. It's just not where I'm going to land.
Okay, I was just about to say, how do you feel about the Dodgers then? 4th in top stack, 7th in ownership at 7%. Clearly the top 4 dudes in the Dodgers lineup, you're very happy to have. It's the
always.
Bottom of the order that you're a little bit less interested in, I guess. But Park plays up power. James Outman looks interesting. Michael Busch looks interesting. If they're both in the lineup, I don't know if we have that one yet. I have 13 stacks of the Dodgers. I'm a little north of that 7%. No big stand here. They're behind all the other major teams that we've talked about. But I do like the top of the Dodgers lineup.
I like the top of the Dodgers lineup because they're really good. And then the bottom half is going to be stacked with mostly lefties, and they're really cheap. So I do get the Dodgers here for sure. I prefer like the Rangers as the contrarian stack. But those 2 teams belong together for me. For me, there's 4 clear top offenses today. The Coors teams, Texas and the Dodgers. Texas and the Dodgers, both those teams are very good. The Dodgers are better than Texas. I don't think anyone would argue that. But they're close. And Reyes is, Pfaadt's not proven, but Reyes is even way less proven than Pfaadt is. So, that's why I prefer Texas. But those 2 offenses are very similar to me. If you told me tomorrow that the Dodgers won this slate against Pfaadt, who before he got sent down had massive home run problems, I'm saying, okay, you know what I mean? That's what they do.
Do the Diamondbacks stand out to you at all against Pepio here? 14% owned for Pepio. They're 9th in ownership, 8th in top stack.
Nah, Pepio's not getting love. He's a well-regarded pitcher, so like I don't want to use him because of that, but I don't really expect him to get blown up here. The guys that I would want on Arizona are also really expensive, the top of their lineup. So it's just not the offense that I'm going to go to. Much prefer the Dodgers if I'm choosing between these 2 teams. And the ownership is similar. So it's the Dodgers for me there.
All right, let's sum it up. Your favorite stacks for tonight?
It's those 4. So I'm just going to say, it's Atlanta, obviously. Atlanta's in their own stratosphere. Then it's Texas, Colorado, and the Dodgers for me. And then I think there's a massive drop down.
And your priority pitching for today?
I think it's Cole, Jackson, and Zerpa.
No disagreements from me. Not at all.
I feel like it's more Jackson and Zerpa than Cole for me. Sorry.
No, you're good. Look, Jackson and Zerpa are going to unlock a very different hitting construction for you if you're not getting to Cole, and particularly if you're not getting to Cole or Luzardo.
Right.
So, no disagreement. Folks, deeper dive in the books. MLB Live Before Lock coming up next. You don't have to go anywhere. Stay right on this stream. Thanks to Matt Belman for joining me for this one. Thanks to Jordan Klein. Welcome back from vacay, buddy. Nice to see you. Didn't think you were going to be here. I thought we were just going to end it all and never come back. Have fun, everybody. Play the Braves, play the Rockies, do whatever you need to do. Play the things that I don't have. That way I have a clean path to the top. We'll talk to you later. Good luck.
Is it Jason or Jason though? That's my question.
Well, what is this related to?
Jason Dominguez being called up.
Oh, it's Jason Dominguez.
I am hosting. Yes.
Yeah, he just has too many S's in his name. Just to start talking up the restart counting down, Jordan.
Welcome to Stochastic MLB Live Before Lock. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I'm here with Greg Ehrenberg. You can find him on Twitter at GEhrenbergDFS. I'm like 95% sure about that now. I didn't look it up, but I remember it from yesterday. At GEhrenbergDFS. Check him out if you haven't already. This show is sponsored by Caesars. We're going to talk about that great Caesars deal. Make sure you have your ad blocker turned. I forgot to say that yesterday. Make sure you have your ad blocker turned off. You're not going to be able to take advantage of that deal if you have. Probably depends on the ad blocker, but it's going to be a hindrance to taking advantage of the Caesars deal that you're really going to want to take advantage of. Greg, I don't recall. Are you a Yankees fan? You seemed excited about Jason Dominguez being called up to the Yankees.
No, I mean, like when I was a kid, it was, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm excited. I was just kind of reacting to news and be like, hey, look, Jason Dominguez got called up, well-regarded prospect. One thing that at least makes him somewhat relevant in my life is my brother, really big into collecting baseball cards. And for at least a point in time, Jason Dominguez, partially because he was a highly ranked prospect, also partly because he's in the Yankees organization, he got like an extraordinary amount of hype. So there was a point in time where he was like one of the most expensive cards that you could buy. That's not the case anymore, but still, I'm sure, I guarantee you it's something that my brother's going to want to talk to me about almost immediately after the show is over.
I forgot that your brother and I have that because I was actually that's my only reference point for Jason Dominguez, which is why I didn't know that his name is not pronounced Jason. I always assumed it was pronounced Jason.
Yeah. Well, you nailed the last name at least.
I did. Dominguez I can do, but I have had some of his cards in the past. There's a Upper Deck brand. They have Goodwin Champions, and I at one point somehow got one of his cards, a Jason Dominguez card that was like a special card with like lightning in the background, whatever. And I was trying to sell it for like $120 at some point. I think I ended up selling it for like $5. Like it was like at one point it was like, oh, this is a super rare card, but it's Upper Deck, which doesn't have the MLB licensing, so it can't have like Yankees logos. Not worth nearly as much. I thought it was going to be like super rare, but did not sell. So that's my only. I've never had like a Jason Dominguez cool autograph card or anything like that from Bowman Chrome. But that's good. Does your brother still have some of his cards? Do you know?
I don't know. Where I'm from, Upper Deck is shitting in the upper part of the toilet in the tank. So I don't know. This isn't exactly what I'm familiar with.
Yeah. Well, if he does, I mean, if he hits a home run tonight, like this would be the time to sell. So hopefully he held on to some of those Jason Dominguez cards and can still sell those. Have you run your Sims yet? Right? I know that we just got a weird Pittsburgh lineup, but are you running your Sims as we talk right now?
No, so I mean, I've got all my lineups, at least as far as the information I have, set and ready to go. Once we get the next ownership update with the Pittsburgh Pirates, I'm going to have to rerun some lineups and then also rerun everything through. But by and large part, I have a pretty good sense of where my lineups are going to end up being, which is not to spoil it, but pretty highly leaning towards the Atlanta Braves as a stack right now.
I am shocked to hear that. I imagine I'm going to be getting to a lot of the Braves. Also, Nice Kevin said, wait, where was it? He said, Goodwin Champions is the Arby's of card. Yeah, Goodwin Champions is the Arby's of card. Is that a good thing? Is being compared to Arby's, is that like a high compliment?
No, whenever you're being compared to running backs, it's a bad thing.
Oh, running backs. That's a different take on it. Man, you've got football on the mind. That's all right. What about Arby's, the food? What about Arby's, the chain restaurant?
I've never been to it before. I have no interest. It's really, listen, a man can only live by certain codes. One of mine is to never eat Arby's at any point in time before I die. As long as I do that, I feel like I've had some sort of success in my life.
I've had it a few times in the past year. So the Timberwolves actually run a promo for every home game where it's like, if the Timberwolves make a certain number of 3-pointers, you get a free Arby's sandwich. Like anybody in attendance, if you have, I think it might even be just like if you have the Timberwolves app on your phone, you get a free Arby's sandwich if they make a certain number of 3-pointers. That is like a low bar, like they hit it every time. And I have taken advantage of that deal 0 times, but there is an Arby's. It's like probably the closest fast food to me. So my wife has actually a couple times been like, let's just go to Arby's. So I have had it a couple times in the past year. They have some super spicy sandwich that I have had, and it was actually very spicy.
Can I make an assumption here?
Yeah, go ahead.
It didn't agree with your stomach.
Oh no, of course it didn't. I mean, my stomach. I live in Minnesota. Like we're not used to really spicy foods, so any kind of super. I like a good amount of spice, like just like before the point of pain. Like I like a good amount of flavor. I don't really like painful spice, but yeah, any kind of like flavorful food is ultimately going to upset my stomach. But that's always tomorrow's problem when I'm eating it. That's not an immediate problem. So at least I have that going for me. All right.
And you should tell the people really quick, because we're about to start talking about baseball. Neil, what are you going to be doing tomorrow night? And how could this potentially impact what foods you might be eating during the course of the day?
Well, here's an unfortunate thing. So tomorrow night, I am going to be hosting a best ball marathon stream right here on this channel. Really hope you guys will hang out with me, because a lot of it I might be doing part of it solo. I am going to have some guests on with me. We're just going to be drafting a bunch of best ball streams. It's going to be starting tomorrow night at 8:00 p.m. Eastern time. So after this show is over, I'm going to be hosting a show for 5 hours. I'm going to say a minimum of 5 hours. Maybe I'll go even later if I still have any kind of audience at that point. But I'm going to start at my time. Central time is going to be 7:00 Central, going until midnight at the very least. Going to have some guests on. We're going to rip some best ball drafts. It's going to be a lot of. I talked about it before. I was going to do it on Sunday. Then I got super sick over the weekend, so didn't think it was feasible that I was going to be able to talk for hours on end. But tomorrow night, gonna have some beers. Maybe we'll get to bourbon hour. We'll see where it goes, but should be a really good time. Hoping that some of you guys will join me. But the downside here is tonight I have my law school friends are having our draft for my fantasy football league, and me and a couple of the other members of the league are going to Buffalo Wild Wings to draft there. And anything I get at Buffalo Wild Wings is probably not going to be ideal for myself. I think I'll be cleared by tomorrow night for that draft stream. So I don't think it's going to be an issue, but not off to a great start in terms of the like preparing diet wise for that stream.
All right, so there you go. A little bit of insight into what's going on with Neil and how his bathroom schedule may be impacted by tomorrow's marathon stream, which Jordan brought up before the show. It could be an issue, right? Neil does go to the bathroom for every single show that we do together. So Neil did alert us to the fact that he had a "we'll be back in 5 minutes" graphic made up for him while he's doing the stream tomorrow.
It seems like a good idea, right? In general, like I don't understand how anybody does it without that kind of thing. Like it's not just me. Everybody needs to go to the bathroom. Like in the course of 5 hours, most people are going to have to go to the bathroom at some point. And I'm going to be probably having some beers on the stream. Like, yeah, I'm gonna need to go to the bathroom at some point during the stream. I thought it was smart to have a "we'll be back" graphic to throw up there. We'll see how often I use it.
All right, okay, so you guys tune into Neil's stream tomorrow night.
Hope you guys will come hang out with me. Should be a fun time. Get some of those drafts in before the season starts. We only have limited time left to do it. Yeah, Larry, this isn't even as deep as my V yesterday, but I do love a good V-neck. All right. Do we want to talk a little bit of baseball?
Go ahead.
We only have 30 minutes left to talk some baseball. So let's start. Let's just jump into the pitchers. Let's start at the high end, I guess. Anybody over 9,000. We only have 3 pitchers over 9,000. Actually, let's start at 8,500. We've got 4 pitchers, 8,500 and higher. Everybody else is cheap. So we've got Ryan Pepio at 8,500. Jesus Luzardo at 9,200, Zach Eflin 9,700, and then Garrett Cole, big jump to 11,500. Are you playing any of these guys, or are you doing the same thing that we have been doing and just playing cheap guys?
Yeah, it's a lot of cheap guys today. Not ones I feel great about either. And we'll see, because now that we have this like super weird Pittsburgh Pirates lineup, I actually was getting to a good amount of Pirates as one-offs to save some salary in lineups before. But I mean, our data loves the Atlanta Braves so much as a stack today, like a ridiculous amount. This is, correct me if I'm wrong, Neil, and I don't mean to jump around and go into pitcher, but kind of like what we said the other day when we were talking about pitchers, you can't really talk about the pitchers without first addressing the Braves offense being such a team that we want to be stacking today. This is a 6-game slate. We have them with a 40.7% chance to be the highest scoring team on the slate. I've never seen this before. I don't think I've seen a number this high on like a 4-game slate. For a 6-game slate, this is just ridiculously unheard of. So it is so hard for me to get away from the Atlanta Braves as a stack. They're also really expensive, which means what? I can't go out. Like if I came out here and I told you guys, it's a pretty good roster build, the Atlanta Braves stacked with Garrett Cole and Jesus Luzardo as the pitchers, be like, yeah, that would be nice. But you'd also be cheating if you had that lineup built in some sort of way. My priority on this slate, all things being considered, do I want to pay up for pitching? Do I want to pay up for hitting? It's going to be paying up for this Atlanta Braves offense. And if that is going to be the case, which it is, I just can't pay up for any pitchers all that frequently. If you ask me which pitcher makes the most sense on that, I'm going to say Garrett Cole, but I'm well underway to the field to him because of my offense exposure.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. The Braves look so. What is their actual run total here? What's their implied total? Let's see. We've got
like
them
9.
I've never seen. Yeah. I think the highest I've seen is like around 30% top stack odds, like on any slate. Maybe on like a 4-gamer, as you said. There might be shorter slates where it's been higher, and I just haven't really thought much of it because it was such a short slate. But yeah, this is absolutely insane for over 40% chance of being the top stack on a 6-gamer. Never seen anything like it. So I'm with you. Probably playing a lot of the Braves tonight. I would imagine a lot of the field is playing the Braves tonight too. Although maybe it helps that they didn't really go off yesterday. Do you think that drives down the ownership at all?
Like, I mean, we don't have them projected for that much ownership. To be clear, they're projected to be very popular, but relative to their top stack odds, we have them with a 23.3% projected ownership as a team, compared to a 40.7% chance to be the top scoring team. So I've never seen a team with any amount of reasonable ownership that has double those odds of being the top scoring team on the slate.
Yeah. I'm reading chat, and I just saw Jordan calling me a piss and shit machine. So I'm missing some good stuff in chat, clearly. Yeah, Jordan is right. I can go to the bathroom with the best of them. But I can probably hold. So Jordan set the over under for bathroom breaks for me tomorrow at 7.5. I am taking the under there, Jordan. I'll be probably only going between drafts is probably the goal for me. But taking the under. I would set the line at 3 is probably 3.5, maybe 2.5 even is a good line there, but we'll see.
By the way, what sports books have set the over under for the Atlanta Braves today? I just pulled up DraftKings Sportsbook. They have it at 7.5, and it's heavily juiced towards the over.
7.5 juice towards the over. Okay.
Yeah. So what you'd actually be expecting, like this team books are like actually projecting this team to score about 8 runs today, which is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, you don't see that all that often. Kind of makes sense.
Not only do you not see that all that often, I don't think I've ever seen it before.
Yeah. I'd be curious what the highest runs like of the past 10 years are. Like what are the highest implied totals? It's got to be on the board, probably in the top 5 somewhere, but I don't know. Maybe I'm forgetting some of those like Yankees in their heyday kind of thing.
So if we want to include these games in it, like the Mexico City games, like those actually had higher ones, but in terms of games that were not played like on the moon or in some sort of ridiculous atmosphere, this is the highest that I can remember seeing.
Click it on my fan funding tab, Greg, as you suggested in chat. We got a super chat from our Apple guy, Chris Williams, asking, get ready to really want to go to the bathroom on this question. Can you rank the 2-game late slate pitchers on DraftKings in your eyes? I know it's as gross as my dating life. Hit the like button, people. I'm sorry that your dating life is gross, Chris. I'm sure it'll get better over time. But yeah, I agree. You should hit the like button. We'll have, are you pulling up the late slate, Greg?
Yes, I'm pulling up the late slate right now. I would say one thing that will probably help your dating life is don't reveal that you spend a lot of your time hanging out with us on this YouTube channel. I wouldn't say that. Like, what do you do for fun? I watch these, 2 dirty guys talk about their assholes for extended periods of time on YouTube. I don't know that necessarily I would bring up that as an intro to your dating life. So maybe that's something you bring up from time to time, which would be ill-advised. Let's see. Late slate. Oh, this isn't going to be great, is it? So we got the Coors Field game, and then we've got Arizona, and the Dodgers. So let's look at the pitchers. The options we have are, this is how bad it is. I mean, the most expensive pitcher by a mile is Ryan Pepio at $8,500. Beyond him, you've got Darius Vines, Brandon Pfaadt, and then Kyle Freeland. And salary, no issue as far as pitchers go. I guess so the ownership also is Vines, Pepio, and Pfaadt are all north of 60%, and then just nobody's playing Kyle Freeland 4%. Do we want to tell people that just for contrarian purposes, you go play Kyle Freeland? Because I even in good conscience, I can't do that.
We've got him projected for 3 fantasy points. I thought I had heard Greg. Sorry, I thought I'd heard Josh on the previous show saying that he was playing the Colorado pitcher. Maybe I completely misheard him because then I looked at I was like, "There's no way he's playing Kyle Freeland projected for 3 fantasy points." So if somebody can in chat can correct me, but I thought that Josh was saying that he was playing the Colorado pitcher. And Chris is agreeing. He says that Josh did say he's playing. Huh? Was he talking about Freeland or like a relief pitcher? Because like I don't know. I don't feel great recommending Freeland, but at 8% ownership, like, is it possible that all of the other 3 fail so badly that Kyle Freeland could put up like 7 fantasy points and being the high scoring pitcher? Like, that's what you're kind of hoping for when you're playing Kyle Freeland. You're not getting 20 fantasy points out of Kyle Freeland.
I can't really recommend it though. Like I would go Vines 1 and I guess Fat 2. Because the other thing about him is, he's at least a talented pitcher who has some strikeout upside. Pepio, you don't know how deep he's going to work into the game. So I'll go Vines 1 and Pepio 2. Vines 1 and Fat 2, Pepio 3, Freeland 4. The options are terrible.
What is you think Pepio? What is his upside in terms of pitch count?
Let's see. It's
We
not a
haven't
lot.
projected okay.
I mean, it's relative to the other pitchers. Like they all project fairly terrible.
True.
All right. So Ryan Pepio, what can we expect from him in terms of pitch count? Pull up his game log here. And Pepio, as far as pitch count is concerned,
yeah, only 4 innings.
I'd say you're probably getting 4 or 5 innings out of him. And 8,500, you're going. I know it's only a 2-game slate, but you're going to want to pay up for the Atlanta Braves to some extent, which is going to be hard to do if you're paying the 8,500 Pepio.
Yeah. Yeah. He projects okay for us. Is the only reason I ask, because I'm like, is that problematic? But I think a projection of 14, like, it's not like that's a really great projection. It's just a kind of a mid projection.
Yeah, sticking by my ranks.
All right. Thinking about if you, so is Vines 1, Fat 2, Pepio 3, and then just not playing Colorado pitchers?
Yeah.
Okay. That seems reasonable to me. I'll agree with those rankings. All right. So back to the main slate. You say you're mostly playing the cheap guys. We got those top 4 out of the way. You're not actually just among those top 4. I guess you already said Garrett Cole would be kind of obvious, the one that you would go to if you want to play one of those top guys, but you're mostly playing the cheaper guys. So let's open it up to the rest of the field at pitching. Who do you like? Who are you playing the most of today?
Well, like is a strong word. It's sure. What can I stomach? Right. Yeah. What is going to allow me to go to the bathroom less than 7.5 times today? And it's not much. Like I'm getting to a good amount of Andre Jackson at $5,400 because he's got number 1 cool hair. Doesn't really factor that much in, but at least it makes him a little bit more fun to watch. But it's a good matchup for him against the Kansas City Royals. So I'm getting to Andre Jackson. I'm getting to some of Darius Vines as well. There are many alarming things in Darius Vines' minor league numbers. He is a low ERA, but the underlying numbers are terrifying for Darius Vines. But he does go up against a pretty weak Colorado Rockies team today. He's also super cheap. If he could somehow make it through 5 innings, I think he's probably going to get the win bonus. You look at his numbers in the minor leagues that I was referencing, he does have a 2.86 ERA. If we stop there, it'd be like, oh, cool. He's a young pitcher with a 2.86 ERA, but he's not that young. He's 25 years old. He's an unranked prospect. He's a 5.4 FIP in addition to that 2.86 ERA. He's hardly pitched at all this year. Across A-ball and AAA, we've seen a total of about 40 innings this year out of him. So very small sample size. And his other minor league numbers in his career are also not all that impressive. So I don't think this guy is great. I don't mind stacking against him either. But what is going to enable me to pay up for that Braves stack that we really want to get to? And it's just mixing and matching some of these absolute dog shit pitchers. So I'm going to be getting some exposure to Danny Reyes. I'm going to be getting exposure to Darius Vines, Andre Jackson. I'm not planting my flag in any of these guys. What I'm planting my flag in is the Braves as an offense. And I'm just going to mix and match these cheap pitchers together and just hope somebody does. You need 2 of them to be decent today. I can't confidently tell you which 2 of those are going to be decent. I could tell you the ones that I'm getting the most of right now. I'm expecting it to be Andre Jackson and Brandon Pfaadt for the late slate. And I mean, for the main slate. And there's not all that much ownership going too fat, sub 10%. Darius Vaughn's also mentioned him. He's 12.9% owned. So on the low end, what the field is doing, like Danny Reyes is 23.6% owned. Jackson also is picking up some ownership at 25%, but taking some chances on these guys who have single digit ownership. The ones that I said, Brandon Pfaadt stands out to me. And then also Vaughn just slightly over 10%. Like those are the contrarian cheap pitchers that I think have the most upside.
Can I give you the best reason I can think of to play Kyle Freeland today? Do you do this, the achievements thing on DraftKings where you're win hunting?
Okay. So people message me about how do I go about and do these achievements? They're worth so little value because I've seen people have been like, oh, I'm going to play this slate so that I need to get the achievement, which player from this. And people just throw away money building bad lineups, trying to roster pitchers or whatever, get the win bonus. What you actually get in terms of monetary value for completing that mission, it's like $3 or something like that.
5,000 crowns, 5,000 crowns, which is not a ton of money. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. What is it actually worth? 5,000 crowns is worth like $8, Neil.
Beautiful. I mean, that's worth the entry. I mean, in the $3, it's totally worth it. All right. So I'm probably not playing. I'll find a better day to play a Rockies pitcher, but that's the best reason I can give to play Kyle Freeland today. All right. Anything else we need to say about pitch? I realize we only have 15 minutes left before lock, so we should probably move on to stacks. Anything else you want to say about pitchers?
No, we could build lineups in the lineup generator too. I mean, I don't have a ton to say about stacks on the slate other than I'm playing just a metric shit ton of the Atlanta Braves and then mixing around just mixing in some of these cheap pitching options. Those are my lineup builds today.
Yep, and that makes a lot of sense to me. Let's throw it to the lineup generator. Can we pull up the lineup generator, Jordan? There we go. Jordan's getting there.
Click buttons. See if we got anybody who added us in the Discord channel, and not me. Maybe do they potentially message you today?
I didn't see any ats for me. Let me see.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not too many. I mean, it's short slate, only 6 games. If you guys have questions in Discord, you can add us, and we always answer those.
Speaking of Discord, congrats to J187 for joining the team today. That was pretty exciting. I know he's very active in Discord, very helpful with people in Discord. So it was really cool to see him added to the Stochastic team officially today.
That's a good point, actually, because we do. I see Game On Let's Go in the YouTube chat said $8 get you a half dozen spicy subs from Arby's. I mean, if we really want to make Neil's day great tomorrow, somebody put together the best order that Neil could get from Taco Bell for $8, but he has to eat it right before his stream starts.
That would make it interesting. Okay. Wait, did you do contrarian or you did all in? Okay. So this is 65% Ronald Acuna is our highest exposed player. Travis d'Arnaud, Peguera, Austin Riley. So we're pretty condensed here. It's similar to what I saw when I did the lineup generator VOD earlier. I think I'm okay with it though. Like as I said on the VOD, this is the rare day where I look at the top stacks tool. I see how good the Braves look in the top stacks tool, how we have some positive leverage. I think I'm okay just being condensed, eating that chalk. What do you think, Greg?
That's what I'm doing in my lineups. I'm playing a ton of Braves. It's just the same talking point from before. I don't have 90% Braves, but I have a lot of them. I'm going to see what ends up coming up to in my final build tier, but they were in more than half my lineups when I did it before. Yeah.
Jordan, can you go back to player exposure? I just want to see who the most exposed pitchers are that we got to here. So we got to Andre Jackson, our highest exposed at 45%, Denny Reyes at 35%, Luzardo 20%, Dane Dunning 20%, Garrett Cole 20%. So we're fairly spread out at pitcher, mostly the cheap guys too, but we do have 20% Garrett Cole, so not completely missing there. 15% Zach Eflin, 15% Fat, 15% Vine. So yeah, we are very spread out at pitcher. Sounds like it's pretty similar to what you're doing today, Greg.
Yep, very, very similar to what I'm doing. In fact, these are the pitchers about in the order in the cheap end that I'm getting exposure to them as well. Andre Jackson, a little bit lower. I am on Denny Reyes, and then the expensive pitchers not getting as much of, but then some Dane Dunning there. And then I saw also some Darius Vines popping up a little bit overweight to field. So yeah, this is fairly similar to my builds, just like a little bit more extreme.
Yep. Can we do some FanDuel lineups as well, Jordan?
Yeah, do it, Jordan.
10 minutes till lock, guys. So hopefully you are working on your lineups now.
I tell you, I am.
Jumping all over in terms of ownership. Once again, ton of Braves, a little bit of the Pirates. I just see Connor Joe at the top there. Let's see the stack exposures, Jordan. 85% Braves, 35% Yankees. So a little more Yankees on FanDuel. That's kind of interesting. Seeing 35% Yankees. I think they were relatively cheap. I think I actually saw that.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Brendan Rodgers just got scratched.
Oh no.
Well, I've got my lineups running right now. This is just going to be, but this is also the second time this week that Brendan Rodgers got scratched. Happened 2 days ago also,
That's right.
I think, if I remember correctly.
Was it Brendan Rodgers? Yeah.
Yesterday, the late scratches were awesome because there was so yesterday, George Kirby ended up like 5 times higher owned than Oakland A's stacks yesterday.
That was hilarious. Yeah, so you and I were still talking when we got the news that George Kirby was scratched. And you said, I think this makes Oakland the best play on the slate at that point. And I think you were right. Like I played some Oakland as well. And literally I was looking at my lineups. I was like, I have so many player innings remaining. And it was like Braves, Oakland stacks. And like literally every single one of my Oakland bats was under 1% owned. So it was like, it had a real shot of just like crushing the slate. Didn't work out yesterday. They kind of fell flat as you would expect from Oakland. But if they had gotten through and made some plays, got 10 plus runs, it would have been a great night for us.
And most of the stacks did suck yesterday. There was like
the
Dodgers
that's the reason,
were good. The Dodgers put up 9 runs. It's fun. Like most of my best lineups yesterday actually were A's stacks because they did have some guys in lineups that scored some fantasy points. So like relative to the slate, it's not like the performance was totally terrible.
Right.
But still, it was one where like going into the late slate, I was kind of like, boy, the Braves are struggling now. I think I was able to get onto like 10% of Oakland stacks, which is well overweight to the field. And then obviously didn't have George Kirby because I swapped him out. But I was feeling pretty good about it until they didn't score past like the 3rd inning.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. Like I only started tracking it after they had scored 3 runs early on. And I was like, oh, wow, this could really work out. And then they, of course, fell flat, which, as we said, like it's kind of what you expect from Oakland, but they have their spike games here and there. Would have been nice if it happened yesterday, but didn't work out. All right, so we'll have to adjust. Take Brendan Rodgers out of your lineups if you have him in there. All right, anything you notice here? Anything else to talk about here? Or do you just want to move on to talking about bats a little bit?
Yeah, so if we talk about the pitchers here on FanDuel, was there a pitcher on the high end we got 2 more of there, Jordan? No. So also really spread out at pitcher on FanDuel. Andre Jackson, our most roster pitcher, 25%, 20% Dane Dunning. If you keep going down, we had Vines there at 10%. So this is as spread out as we've ever seen the pitching on FanDuel, especially when you consider the size of the slate. So once again, it goes in line with how my lineups are being built and how it's playing out. I don't want to take any stands on these cheap guys because by and large part, they all suck. But could we get like 10 fantasy points out of 2 of these guys and the Braves go out and they score like what they're projected for, which is 8+ runs today at sportsbooks? And I think then we'd be looking pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's move on and talk about some bats since we have 7 minutes left to talk about them. I mean, we've already basically talked about all the important parts. Like you're playing the Braves or you're not, essentially today is what it comes down to. You're playing a lot of the Braves. I'm playing a lot of the Braves. I think that playing a lot of the Braves is probably the sharp thing to do when the field is pretty underweight there. But to what extent are you jamming in the Braves? Are you playing like 100% Brave stacks? Are you well over the field? What are you doing here?
So on my last run, I had about 60% of them when I went through the Sims tool, which I don't have in front of me right now because I'm still rerunning everything for the Pirates nonsense. And then I figure out what I'm going to be doing with the whole Brendan Rodgers situation. But I know for sure the Braves are going to be my most rostered team. They're going to be in more than half of my lineups. I don't know the exact percentage now, but by a mile, this is going to be my most rostered team. And if my last run of sorry, what's that?
Sal Perez scratched now too. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but that seems like actionable news.
Let's see. Well, the good thing is the Royals game starts at 8:10 p.m. Eastern time. The Rockies game starts at 8:40 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
So it's not like we have to address this right before lock. We could go ahead upload our lineups, let them run, and then anything that we have to change, at least pertaining to those two players, we could change that after lock, and it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, that is a good point. Neither of these are immediate concerns for us, but it is, we got to mention it. You got to get Brendan Rodgers out of your lineups, get Salvador Perez out of your lineups, because both of them have been scratched. So keep that in mind. So you're playing north of 50% of the Braves. Are there any other stacks that you love tonight that you're going to be overweight to the field?
Not really. It's hard when you just have one team that's so superior. So on my last run, Neil, I had like some other teams popped up in some lines. I didn't have more than 5% of any team other than the Braves.
Wow. Yeah. And that makes sense. I mean, the Braves just look so good today, and you gotta kind of trust the tools. And when they have an implied run total that's like 8 runs, is you're not going to see that all that often. So you gotta, if the field isn't going to be on there to the extent you think that they should be, and the Braves are also like, they've gone down in price somewhat. Like, wasn't Austin Riley also 6,900 recently? Like, Acuna is still at 7,000, but it seems to me like they've actually gone down somewhat in price.
I wouldn't really say gone down in price. I don't remember exactly what they were relative to yesterday. But the other thing, too, about the Braves is because we have the Braves as being so underowned relative to what their top stack odds are, it means that we have just about every other team projected to be overowned. There are very few teams that we have projected with higher odds of being a top scoring team relative to their ownership when the Braves are picking up, like half of our top stack percentage odds. So then you have teams like, even the teams that are picking up like no ownership, the Miami Marlins, 2.7% ownership, but a 1.6% chance to be the top scoring team. You got teams like the Tampa Bay Rays, 3.8% projected ownership, 3.6% chance to be a top scoring team. So it's not that I have 100% Braves. I have a lot of them. By the way, my sim just finished running, my final sim here.
Nice.
So I could favorite my top 150 lineups, and I could tell you exactly what it is that I am getting to, and it is 60.7. So I do have a 60.7% Braves, and I now have 16% Pirate stacks. So those are the two teams. I did end up getting overweight to the Pirates as well. And with that in mind, I think I'll play the Pirates. Yeah, I'll play the Pirates in single entry just because I think the Braves are going to be just so absurdly highly owned in single entry.
Will you still have some Braves in that lineup, you think? Like as a secondary stack?
Let's see. I'm going to try to find a lineup that doesn't.
Okay.
Just because I think in single entry fields, I think the Braves will be like 50 to 60% owned.
Yeah, no, I think that you're probably right about that. Like they'll be in line with where they should be in single entry, basically.
Yeah. So in single entry, they're going to be super popular. Large field tournaments, I do think we see them like low 20% owned as a team, which is under-owned relative to our odds. It's always hard trying to figure out what the field is going to do in single entry because it does end up being quite a bit different than every other contest. But that's my assumption, is the Braves are just going to be insanely owned in single entry. So won't play them there, but large field tournaments, like I said, 60% Brave stacks for me.
We have somebody in chat named Bugboy, and Malachar asked him, "Are you an exterminator from Cali?" And he says, "Nah, I'm just a motherfucker with massive eyes." I thought that was funny. All right. So we're going to do home run picks because we do have 2 minutes until lock. So make sure you get those lineups in, guys. Before we do home run picks, let me just remind you to take advantage of this deal with Caesars. It's going to be expiring in September. So take advantage of it while you can. $50 in bets, you get $250 in bonus bets in 5 $50 increments over the course of 5 weeks. Really great deal. If you haven't taken advantage of it, you should do so. Make sure you don't have your ad blocker on because that will block you from taking advantage of that deal at Caesars. Of course, you need to be 21 plus to gamble in most places. And if you or somebody you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Greg, are you prepared to make your home run pick?
Yep. I'm looking through, trying to figure out who it is that I want to pick right now. It's not going to, I hit my home run pick yesterday. I had Mitch Garver. It was one thing right. One thing that really helped me on the slate is that Mitch Garver is my most rostered hitter, and he did homer. So that helped me out. Let's see, though. I figure I should probably go with a Pittsburgh Pirates hitter here, right?
Yeah, you kind of have to. I don't
right,
see any Pittsburgh. Go ahead.
I'll go with Brian Reynolds then. The like one of the only actual good big league players in their lineup right now. Brian Reynolds to homer. He's in 24% of my lineups.
I'm trying to even find Brian Reynolds. We have Andrew McCutchen up there in terms of Pirates. Where is Brian Reynolds? Did I just miss him? I can't find Brian Reynolds immediately. Maybe I scrolled past him. I'm gonna go with Max Muncy. I think that he's got about a 28% chance of hitting a home run tonight against Brandon Pfaadt. Feel really good about Max Muncy. I do want to find. Let me just find. Right. Oh, I must have scrolled past him. We have Brian Reynolds with a 13% chance of hitting a home run tonight. So not your highest odds bet, but when you're feeling yourself like Greg is because he hit it last night, you can go with the 13% odds there. All right, Greg, it is lock. So we have made it to lock. Do you have any final words?
Let's go Braves. And listen, cheap starting pitchers. Just 2 of them don't suck today. Only 2 of them. I just need 2 of them to not suck today and the Braves to do their thing. I think we'll be looking decent. And
it feels like the odds are pretty good for that to happen. All right, guys, if you haven't done so, please do like the video. I got to remind you at the end of the show, if you haven't already hit the like button, please do hit the like button. It helps us out quite a bit. Make sure you're back here tonight. We're going to be doing this show again, and then make sure you join me tomorrow night for that best ball stream. Will be a lot of fun, even if you're not really into best ball. We're just going to be hanging out, having a good time. So join me for that if you are free tomorrow night. Thanks for watching, guys. Good luck tonight.